Hi everyone, Jamie here. Welcome to my Journey 1 log assignment for our Sustainable Tourism Certificate Program. This is the assignment about carbon offsetting and looking at an existing tour package to see what the carbon footprint of that tour package is and what opportunities might be for reducing that footprint. What I did right away is I went ahead and used a tour that is not a real tour yet, but I was able to use a trip that my friend Hannah and I went on to southern Mexico recently, and we visited with our friend, our colleague Azucena, in her small Mixteca village in Oaxaca, Mexico, slightly outside of Oaxaca City, a few hours. We visited with her and talked to her and interviewed her a bit about her reforestation project she's been involved in there since 2013. She is from this community. Its name is San Agustin Tlacotepec, and her neighborhood is called Totoha. I want to say, first off, that I was not able to put an accent on the A in Totoha in iMovie. There should be an accent, just so you all know. Totoha has an accent on the A at the end. So what you'll see throughout this small documentary I made is an accounting of the carbon that we used in each stage of our process of getting to Totoha, and what we used there, as well as on the way back, as though our visit to Totoha were a standalone tour package. This is relevant to Azucena and her community because they are interested in developing tourism there, so I was able to interview her a bit about her ideas on tourism, etc., which you'll see towards the end. So this is kind of a mixture of slides and interviews with Azucena, and I will do a conclusion for you at the end. Thank you.
nosotros la cultivamos, por ejemplo los vegetales, aquí las personas lo siembran, en mi caso sí, mis padres se dedican a eso, al cultivo de hortalizas. Entonces todo viene siendo pues orgánico porque no se utiliza ningún tipo de fertilizante, sino nosotros utilizamos la composta. Ese sí es un proyecto ya que se adaptó a las necesidades de la comunidad. Aquí por partes el agua es escasa, no hay mucha, entonces algo que nos ha ayudado pues a tener ese líquido importante pues es obtenerlo de la lluvia mediante unos pequeños canales, y cuando llueve ya se depositan en lo que son las presas o y se guardan. La cantidad de agua ha reducido, anteriormente hablando de unos 8 años, 10 años, había un poquito más que ahora, entonces eso también los ha llevado pues a tener conciencia de que debemos cuidarla, protegerla y utilizar realmente lo que es necesario. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Azucena Sánchez Gómez y por ahora nos encontramos en una comunidad de Oaxaca que se llama Totoha, San Agustín Tlacotepec. Y les voy a platicar un poco acerca de mi proyecto denominado Reforestación y Educación. Bien, este proyecto se hizo durante el mes de julio del 2013 y entre fechas a mediados de julio y agosto. Y se empezó a realizar esto con la finalidad de obtener más vegetación en la comunidad, ya que como pueden ver es una zona un poco desértica, no cuenta con muchos árboles aquí, y entonces nosotros queremos tener una zona verde, por lo tanto empezamos a trabajar esto con el apoyo de varias personas, los representantes de la comunidad, algunas organizaciones también nos apoyaron con lo que es los árboles, como lo pueden ver. Al igual, las personas que nos apoyaron fueron voluntarias, y pues por ahora estamos viendo la producción que tuvimos, el resultado. La mayoría de ellos pues están creciendo, algunos por falta de agua y de nutrientes en el suelo no pudieron pues desarrollar, pero pues nos sentimos felices y agradecidos al mismo tiempo por tener la oportunidad de ver el resultado después de un año y meses ya del trabajo que se hizo y pues esperemos que este proyecto durante años después, a la larga, dé más frutos, nos permita tener más especies, más vegetación y sobre todo que alguien o las personas que deseen venir y pues disfrutar de él lo puedan hacer. Sí, al menos sería mucho más ayuda y mucho más beneficio porque en cada lugar es diferente y si tenemos más ideas podemos construir una mejor. Entonces eso nos ayudaría a nosotros a tener otra visión y a crecer o desarrollar más rápido. Pues aquí en Tlacotepet, por lo visto no tenemos muchas personas que nos visitan o lo que practican el turismo, pero quizá en algún tiempo deseamos tenerlo, entonces estamos trabajando en eso y viendo qué posibilidades hay de que se realice parte de lo que es el turismo. Por una parte sí, porque ayudará al desarrollo de la comunidad, en gran parte nos beneficia porque tendremos más autoempleos o cada persona podrá trabajar, hacer alguna que otra actividad para obtener quizá algún recurso más en beneficio de tanto de la familia como de la comunidad. Y por otro lado, quizá por algunos pensamientos de unas personas sea como un poco negativo, pero educando a las personas y dándole a conocer unas ventajas y desventajas al mismo tiempo, yo creo que sí será posible. En primero serían que pues las condiciones para llegar a cierto punto que probablemente sirve como atracción no cuenta con todos los servicios, entonces eso involucra parte de la economía que tenemos que empezar a buscar organizaciones que nos apoyen en ese sentido para poder construir parte de lo que forma el turismo y así poder desarrollar ciertas actividades.
Hello again, welcome back. Welcome to the conclusion section of my video. As you can see, I talked a little bit about potential carbon offsetting from trees in Azucena's reforestation project. And what you probably saw is alone what she is doing, planting thousands of trees in her community, is not ever, even in 25 years, going to be enough to significantly offset any significant tourism in her community. The idea that we floated, that I talked to her a bit about, was involving tourists in the planting of trees, which I think is also an interesting idea. The thing, as we've talked about in some of our posts online and our discussions about planting trees, is that if they die, you lose the benefit. If they die when they are 25 years old, or if they die before they ever reach 25 years old. So, in order for carbon to actually be offset, you'd have to make sure that the trees lasted forever, and if they didn't, you would have to replace them, and then it would take another 25 years to get that carbon sequestration back. So planting trees is problematic in itself. If tourists came to Azucena's community to plant trees, I believe it would be a tourism draw for those types of people interested in voluntourism, air quotes. I would think it would bring people there. I think people would be willing to pay to help finance reforestation efforts in Azucena's community, which may not be able to occur at all without that payment of tourists coming. The trees that the tourists planted may or probably would not be planted without them. They'd be able to plant a lot more quickly with the help of tourists. So I don't think we would have a problem with the additionality we've talked about with some carbon offsets, but trees in general are problematic. Not to mention, it will take 25 years from now for Azucena's trees to even offset the trips of 7.6 travelers, minus the amount of trees that die, so probably more, about like 7 travelers. So that's probably not a good carbon offset strategy, really, although it may be a great tourism strategy, a strategy to help that community, etc. As you heard in Azucena's interview, the community is interested in tourism, but they don't really have a lot of infrastructure there. So you probably noticed also that staying in Totoha was the cheapest carbon portion of the entire trip. It was 2 pounds estimated of carbon use footprint per day per person. This is extremely low, and this is because of the sustainable way and the resource conservation that people use that are living in Totoha. I think if there were a lot more tourism development there, that carbon footprint could really increase. More imported foods, the construction projects involved in building hotels, etc. So there are some interesting questions around, people aren't coming to Totoha right now for tourism, but it could be an ecotourism or voluntourism thing could be constructed there and could be talked about there. But will it ultimately result in positive benefit to the environment? It's hard to say how the carbon footprint would increase. But it would probably result in benefit for development for Azucena's community, which she was mentioning. They are really interested in having more jobs and more self-employment. People like Azucena herself have to travel pretty far to go to school and to work to find jobs because farming is really the primary income earner in that area, and you still need to travel to sell your things at market. So I think there are some opportunities. The other really interesting thing about this whole thing for me, this whole project, is that the by far and away biggest carbon generator in this whole trip that I looked at was the airplane ride. A little bit of the travel in bus, but even buses and cars and taxis were very low in their carbon output compared to the airplane, which has nothing to do really with Azucena's community. So once you get to the in-country, the inbound tour operators, the carbon offset potential is not so much in their hands, I don't believe, as it really is in the outbound tour operators who are selling plane tickets, arranging for bus transport, etc. So again, I always come back to, as far as travel and carbon offsetting, I am really interested in alternatives to, or in reducing the carbon footprint of airplanes and overland travel, but primarily airplanes, as the biggest bang for your buck in reducing really carbon emissions from travel. I don't see any way we can really offset or get around that in country, in small communities, for example. So those are my final thoughts, some interesting ethical questions. I invite your comments and questions and feedback and discussion about some of these things. Really what's interesting to me is the conflict between, probably environmental degradation of some kind and economic development in the small communities such as Totoha, who are interested in tourism and even have reforestation projects to work on with people. And so I don't have an answer to those questions, but I'm really interested in discussing them because I think the human component of sustainability is often overlooked and and if we are using ecotourism as a development strategy, we need to include that in our discussions about this. So thank you so much for watching and have a super day. Bye.